Go ahead and turn to Proverbs 1:13. Proverbs 1:13. This is continuing in the narrative here, really from verse 10. So I guess I'll just read from verse 10 up to verse 13. It says, "My son, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not. If they say, Come with us, let us lay wait for blood, let us lurk privily for the innocent without cause. Let us swallow them up alive as the grave, and whole as those that go down into the pit." And that's where we left off last time. Verse 13, "We shall find all precious substance, we shall fill our houses with spoil." So here we find what the motivation is for these men to lay wait, seek privily, to slay the innocent without cause. And as you could guess, the motivation is money, right? That they're willing to do all these heinous things just to get stuff because they're covetous. Basically, their inspiration there is that old sin of covetousness, which we're told to flee in the New Testament and which was the 10th commandment in the Old Testament. So this is something that God's been talking about for a long, long time. These guys were so greedy of gain that they were willing to take away the life of the owners thereof to get their stuff. And this is a special degree of covetous, I suppose, because there's a lot of, everybody struggles with covetousness to one extent or another. But when you're willing to kill somebody to get what they have, that's a little different than just being like, oh man, it must be nice to be that guy. I wish I had what he had, or whatever. Verse 19, we'll get there here in a week or so, but it says, "So are the ways of every one that is greedy of gain, which taketh away the life of the owners thereof." And you can think about a guy, and I think I probably mentioned this maybe in this series, Ahab, whenever he took away the life of the owner of the vineyard that he wanted. He wanted Naboth's vineyard, and he killed him for it. So he was an example of somebody just like this. Really, his wife was the one that really orchestrated that whole thing. So this will tell us that evil men will stop at nothing to fulfill their lusts. If they want something, they will get it. And probably the only thing that would stop them is if they know they're going to get caught and they know they're going to be punished severely for it. And that's why, and this verse just came to mind, but that's why it's important to have rule of law, and it's important to have justice that is executed speedily. Because this will prevent wicked reprobates from doing heinous things, not because they care about what God says, but because they don't want to be killed. In Ecclesiastes 8:11, it says, "Because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil." This is why I am not a favor of death row for 10 years or really for any length of time. If you're found guilty by a jury of your peers of a heinous crime like murder or rape or something like that, then judgment ought to be executed speedily and you ought to be put to death. And we probably wouldn't have as much of that stuff as we do if that was the case. But this is a good example of what Solomon taught later on in Proverbs 27, verse 20, that the eyes of man are never satisfied. It's never enough. Proverbs 27 and verse 20. It says, "Hell and destruction are never full, so the eyes of man are never satisfied." It says in another place in Proverbs that he that loveth silver shall not be satisfied with silver, right? Nor he that loveth abundance with increase. So it's just the nature of us. How many millionaires or billionaires have you ever met or heard of that said, "Okay, I'm done. I made enough. I'm done." I don't know of any of them that ever pretty much quit, and that's fine because they produce things that the rest of us use, and that's great. It's in a way, greed and covetousness makes the world go round, and it incentivizes people to work hard and provide for themselves and help out their fellow man and along the way. Yes.
Hell and destruction, like the hell word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's never full. There's always more people going in there until the last day, anyway. Matthew Henry said it well. He said this. He actually said this, variations of this in his commentary a few different times, but when he was commenting on Leviticus 11:43 through 47, he said, "Nature is content with little, grace with less, but lust with nothing. You think about that. Nature's content with little, grace with less. So if you, by the grace of God, you can be content with, very little, but lust with nothing. Kind of a play on words there almost, but lust is never content. Doesn't matter what you have, never satisfied. So what Solomon is showing us here is what the Apostle Paul showed us in 1 Timothy 6 and verse 10, and that is that the love of money is the root of all evil. Now, it's not money is the root of all evil. Money is just simply the most widely used and accepted commodity. The money is not the problem. It's the love of money. Somebody that wants money so badly that they will do sinful things to get it. That's really what it comes down to. And it could be killing somebody to take their stuff, or it just could be cutting corners morally, or not being honest in your dealings, or whatever. I mean, there's any number of things that you could do for the love of money. Or it could just be destroying yourself or your family or whatever, because you're just working too hard, or working too much, or whatever. I mean, there can be all different aspects to this. 1 Timothy 6 and verse 10 says, "For the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows." And I have a couple of verses that we're going to look at here in just a minute, and it's going to elaborate on this, that because of the love of money, you can pierce yourself through with many sorrows. You can cause yourself a lot of distress because you love money and you want to go after it so much. We'll get to them in just a second. I would say that wicked men should consider their ways and then just ask themselves, is it worth whatever I'm doing to get all this spoil if I'm going to lose my soul for it? That's what Jesus taught in Mark 8 and verse 36. Is it really worth it to rob some poor guy, kill him for whatever pittance that you can get off of him? Is it really worth losing your soul over that? Mark 8 and verse 36, Jesus said, "For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul?" So it certainly would not be worth it. Anything you could possibly think of is certainly not worth losing your own soul for. It's not even worth the risk of it, right? Because Christ has bought our soul, or he hasn't bought our soul. But the thing is, the assurance that he has done so comes in the obedience. And if we're willing to just cut corners and just kind of not worry about what Jesus said, is it really worth the risk of, maybe ended up finding out that you're not one of the ones that he died for? I don't think so. As Jesus said in Luke 12:15, "A man's life doesn't consist of the abundance of the things that he possesses." Luke 12 and verse 15. My grandpa had a saying. He said that money is the short end of life, but everybody needs a little. And so it's certainly not the most important thing in life, but if you don't have any, it makes life pretty difficult. So everybody needs a little. And they say money can't buy happiness, but I don't know. I don't think that's true, because, if you're living in, say, Missouri in the middle of the summertime and it's 100 degrees out, I'll bet you if you had an extra $50 a month that you could put in an air conditioning unit in your bedroom window, I think that $50 a month could buy you some happiness. I would say. So it's not going to buy you, entire happiness or something, and it's certainly not, if you're not a content person, then having an extra 50 grand a year is not going to make you any happier probably, but there is a point where it can make you happy. I wouldn't deny that. Luke 12 and verse 15. Jesus said, "And he said unto them, Take heed and beware of covetousness, for a man's life consisteth not in the abundance of the things which he possesseth." And the thing is, whenever you possess more abundance of things, they actually possess you, right? Because Solomon taught that in Ecclesiastes. I think it's Ecclesiastes, where he said, Ecclesiastes 5:11 and 12. "When goods increase, they are increased that eat them, And what good is there to the owners thereof, saving the beholding of them with their eyes? I know people like this. I personally know people like this that just keep buying stuff and filling up buildings just so they can look at it while it's on the outside of the pile. Once it gets to the inside of the pile, you can't even see it anymore. But I know people like this. The sleep of a laboring man is sweet, whether he eat little or much, but the abundance of the rich will not suffer him to sleep. You get to a point, it starts owning you, and you got so much to maintain and so much to keep up that it's no longer a luxury. It's an albatross around your neck. You just can't keep up with it all. The most important things in life are not things. I don't think I came up with that one, but I thought it's a good saying. I did come up with this one. It's better to make a difference than a fortune. So it's better to leave your kids an inheritance, a godly inheritance. Money inheritance is nice, but leave them a godly inheritance with good memories of a good loving home. That's probably the most important thing that you can do for your kids. Jesus taught that we can't serve God and money, and if we do, we'll end up despising one or the other, one of the two. Matthew 6 and verse 24. No man can serve two masters, for he either will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. Ye cannot serve God and mammon, which is an old word for money. And these men here that we're looking at in Proverbs chapter 1 certainly were not serving God. They were serving mammon. They wanted to increase their houses with spoil. And when you have a dual alliance there, when you're walking straddled over a fence, that's probably going to end in pain. You can imagine what happens if you try to walk straddled over a fence. It's not going to turn out so well when you come to the fence post anyway. So when we looked at 1 Timothy 6:10, the love of money is the root of all evil. It said, which while some having coveted after have pierced themselves through with many sorrows. This desire to be rich will end up ruining a man, and this is what Paul was warning about there in the previous verse in 1 Timothy 6. And this is certainly the case with these men we're looking at in Proverbs chapter 1, and a really extreme example. But chances are, hopefully, God forbid, none of us are going to be the guys in Proverbs 1 that are laying in wait trying to kill people for money or something. But, to a lesser extent, we could all get trapped in that type of thing, wanting to get more and more and more and cutting corners or whatever to go there. So we can still learn things from this, even if, thank the Lord, we're not in that exact position. It says in 1 Timothy 6:9, but they that will be rich, so will be that want to be rich, they that will be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. Because the thing is, when you want to be rich, then you have to do things, you end up sometimes having to do things that you shouldn't do to get to be rich. And this is what Solomon said in Proverbs 28, verse 22. He said, he that hasteth to be rich hath an evil eye, and considereth not that poverty shall come upon him. So, wanting to be rich, you have an evil eye. You're eyeing up things that you shouldn't be eyeing up, and your thoughts are places where they shouldn't be. And I think it's probably the best thing that we can pray is in Proverbs 30, where he says there, and I've prayed this prayer myself numerous times, Proverbs 30 and verse 7, it says, two things have I required of thee, deny me them not before I die. Remove far from me vanity and lies. Vanity, so worthless, things that don't matter. I wouldn't want to devote my life to something that ultimately doesn't matter at all. That would be it'd be horrible to get to your deathbed and realize, wow, I just devoted my life to something that was just totally meaningless and stupid, right? So want to be delivered from that and lies. I don't want to believe lies. Certainly don't want to teach lies. And then the second part of it, give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with food convenient for me. I don't want to be rich or poor. Being poor has its share of trouble, obviously. And being rich has its share of trouble as well. And so it's best to be in that middle station somewhere where you have your needs met, you're comfortable, but you don't have the problems of the rich or the poor. And here's the reason: lest I be full and deny thee and say, who is the Lord? Because you wouldn't want to get to that point. If money is no issue whatsoever, then you start forgetting about God. You don't need God anymore. You don't need to rely on God or pray to God. So we don't want to go there. Or lest I be poor and steal and take the name of my God in vain. And you're a Christian and you just got caught shoplifting or something, and you've taken the name of Christ, right? You've taken the name of Christ in vain, right? So we don't want to go in either of those two extremes. The way to fill your house with precious substance is by living righteously and faithfully and working hard. Proverbs 3 and verse 33. These guys in Proverbs 1 are going about it the wrong way. But, given fallen nature, it's a heck of a lot easier to steal from somebody if you don't get caught than it is to work hard and earn the money yourself, right? So that's why people do it, if they think they can get away with it. Proverbs 3 and verse 33. It says, the curse of the Lord is in the house of the wicked, but he blesseth the habitation of the just. So the habitation of just and righteous people is blessed, right? Their house will be full of substance. It says, I forget where it says it in, there's a verse in the Psalms where it says that riches are in his house. I'm just going to take just a couple of seconds here to see if I can find this one, but I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to. I know where it is on the page. Maybe it's Psalm, I think it's maybe in the 40s. Just real quickly here. Let's see. No, that was another one. Anyway, I can't remember where it is. I'd have to find it. But anyway, it says riches are in his house, not in his heart, but in his house. So the Lord will bless the habitation of the just. Look at Proverbs 28 and verse 20. A faithful man shall abound with blessings, but he that maketh haste to be rich shall not be innocent. And that's the verse I was thinking about a minute ago. You won't be innocent. You will do things that you shouldn't do. You'll have to lie, cheat, or steal, or something if you haste to be rich. Now, a lot of times, I think today, what happens is, we're not so much, people aren't lying in wait around every corner trying to slay somebody and take their stuff. What they do is they go to the ballot box, and then they vote in politicians that will take the stuff for you and give it to you, right? So, but it's still, stealing either way, right? Exodus 20 and verse 15, thou shalt not steal. Doesn't matter if you're plundering your neighbor or doing it through your local politician at the ballot box. It's still stealing whenever somebody's taking something from somebody and giving it to you. So the thing is with these guys, even if they do end up being successful in pillaging the innocent and robbing them of their substance, it's going to be short-lived because, remember this, there is a God in heaven. And he sees and he takes care of people like this. He takes care of the righteous and he takes care of the wicked too, in a different type of way. In Proverbs 10 and verse 3, it's going to be short-lived. It says, the Lord will not suffer the soul of the righteous to famish, but he casteth away the substance of the wicked. Isn't that what they said they wanted to do? There in verse 13, we shall find all precious substance, we shall fill our houses with spoil. And God says the substance of the wicked is going to be cast away. They're not going to hold on to the substance that they robbed from somebody else. It says in Proverbs 13:22, a good man leaveth an inheritance to his children's children, and the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. They amass all this wealth, and then God orchestrates things in such a way that it ends up getting left to a just man. He has a way of working things out like that. They may spoil their victims, but the Lord will spoil them. Proverbs 22 through 23. God's payday doesn't always come on Friday, but it comes eventually, and sometimes we just have to wait, and it's a test of our faith, but it will come. Proverbs 22 through 23. Rob not the poor because he is poor, neither oppress the afflicted in the gate, for the Lord will plead their cause, that is the poor that's been robbed, just like these guys in Proverbs 1 when they're robbing the poor. For the Lord will plead their cause and spoil the soul of those that spoiled them. That's what they wanted. Precious substance. Fill our houses with spoil. The Lord's going to give that substance to somebody else. He's going to spoil them. That's what he's going to do. We're told in Galatians 6:7, be not deceived, God is not mocked, for whatsoever a man soweth, that also shall he reap. Galatians 6:7. And we're told in Galatians, in Job 4, in verse 8, that they that plow iniquity and sow wickedness reap the same. So when you sow evil things, you will reap evil things. Eventually, the guys that spoiled those innocent people, they get spoiled. They took their substance. God takes the substance of the wicked and gives it to the just. So we can find some comfort in that, knowing that God is eventually going to right all the wrongs.
Isn't that what a lot of governments do?
It's exactly what governments do.
Like anywhere.
Yep. Governments are the Robin Hood of our day. You know, stealing from everybody and giving to the poor. But it's like foreign aid, like Ron Paul used to say. Foreign aid is taking from the poor people in this country and giving it to rich people in poor countries. Because that's what foreign aid ends up doing. It goes to whoever the head honcho is at the top,